So welcome to our Roundtable live streaming here at the Summer Davos Forum in Tianjin. I'm Gaolang from CGTN. Today we have a roundtable discussion on ESG, green development, as well as climate finance and climate crisis. Here we'll bring you the live streaming from Tianjin. And now I'd like to introduce two of my guests today. So first, Frank, Dean of CIBS. Would you say hello to our audience?
Yes, hello to everyone. I'm the Dean of and Vice President of CIBS, the China-Europe International Business School, and very honored and happy to be sharing with this panel.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for joining us. And Danny Qian, she's the Vice President of Jinko Solar. And Danny, you want to talk to our audience?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Danny from Jinko Solar, and now we are in Tianjin.
Sure, thank you so much for joining us today. And today we'll be discussing a very key topic, and that is the green development, and also we'll have like a focus on the ESG and financing part. So these have been high on the agenda for the Davos Forum. But first, before that, I'd love to ask, how's your feeling here? How has the two-day forum looked like to you, Frank?
Well, I think that it's an incredible opportunity to meet different people. I think the title even of this event is about the champions to improve this new world. And therefore, what is very important to see is that in English, champion means a lot of things. It means the winners, it means the fighters, and it means the supporters. And I think that throughout the forum, you can meet academics, you can meet great business leaders, people in the political world. So all of this is an incredible way to bring thoughts and gather ideas for the future.
That's really interesting. Is it your first time coming to Tianjin?
Not in Tianjin, but for the World Economic Forum in Tianjin, yes, of course.
That's very interesting. What about you, Danny? How's it feeling here?
I have been to Davos for 7 times.
7 times?
Yes, but this time, the theme of this time's Davos is so impressive. That is the entrepreneurship could be the main engine of the future resilient economy. Yes, so impressive.
So what's your, which session you feel more impressed?
I think lots of the sessions is related to energy transition, the climate change, the natural resource preservation, which means both the government, public sector, and the private sectors, they have great consciousness of to reserve the nature.
That's really insightful. What about you, Frank? Which session do you like most?
I share the same view as Danny. I think that there is a clear ESG dominant preoccupation, which is very good. Also, I feel there is a lot of also to do with health and well-being for the future, because I think that after we have moved from sustainability to more future-oriented long-term practices, I think health and well-being will be the next step.
Especially after COVID.
Yes, and there were very amazing workshops on biology, healthcare, and you can meet great entrepreneurs in that respect.
Yeah, it's really amazing, because it's also my first time here covering Davos. I haven't been to any before the COVID, so it's my first time. I can really see like people coming from very international and coming to discuss some very important topics. So both of you mentioned ESG and green development. That's also our topic today. So I'd love to clarify to our audience that ESG stands for environmental, social, and governmental. It's become a really mature concept of investments, I think especially in Europe and also in the US. And in China and also in Asia, we are booming and we're developing at a really fast pace. So Danny, you're from a company and focusing on solar energy. So I wonder, for your company, how do you really practice the concept of ESG? How do you incorporate that to your daily life, and also such as the information disclosure in many aspects?
Okay, so first let me briefly introduce the company that founded in 2006. Jinko Solar has become the world's largest solar module producer with current capacity of 90 gigawatts vertical from wafer to cell to module. And Q1 this year, we are the first the solar companies that reach a milestone of 150 gigawatt solar panel delivered, which means 1 of every 8 panels installed in the Earth is made by JinSolar.
So one of 8 solar panels
yes.
in the world.
Yes. It's made by JinSolar. And in other words, that 1 of every 8 tons of carbon dioxide reduced is contributed by a single Chinese company, JinSolar. So
wow, that's a really huge number.
And so different from other companies, ESG is not only a part of our strategy, it's our business, it's our DNA, and it's our what we work for every day. And in addition, in 2019, we became the first renewable companies join RE100, committing that to 100% powered by the renewables by the year 2028. And 2 years later, we joined SBTi to promising to reach the Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3 target by 2030. So, that recently that ESG is becoming a so charming topic. Everyone talking about it.
Of course.
But it's not a new concept. In the past, we are familiar with the CSR. So different from CSR, the main characteristic of ESG is it's traceable, measurable, and disclosable. So in some sessions yesterday or today, I think some of the business sectors, they are so worried about the ESG disclosure order, or they think it's a mandatory regulation and we're going to. But for us, it's a different story, because that we regard it not a mandatory order. We consider it a measurement tools to helping us track whether we are on the progress, on schedule towards our goal.
It's very interesting.
Yeah,
so they're worried about the
they're not worried about
information.
Because
it will show how much carbon they've emitted.
I tell them, maybe I educate them. Don't worry about it. If the guideline, principle, and methodology is clear, for the companies, it's relatively easy. You just input or consolidate the power consumption data and the carbon emission reduction data, and sometimes you need. It's quite easy. I think it's the routine jobs you are working now. But if we have some standardized principle and the regulation, and then the game is easy.
Yeah. So there are like a confusion about the standards.
Don't worry about it, because all the data is there.
Yeah.
What you want to do is to collect it.
Yes, and you want someone who help with you with the standard, like understand the rules.
Yeah.
So I'll turn to you first, Frank. So how do you see the ESG, including the standard like Danny just mentioned? How's that in China? What's the trend, and also in Asia?
Thank you. Yes, as the dean of a business school, and I think I like very much what Danny said about commitment. There is a strong commitment to ESG. You cannot just talk about it, you have to do it. And in a business school like CIBS, the motto of which is China depth and global breadth. So we approach it in a way where it is also in the DNA of the school. You are not just teaching about ESG, and I agree, in the past we would do CSR, but we are doing and teaching, and the great faculty members are teaching ESG in every course, in every elective. It's not a specialized course. It's green finance. It has to do with the green aspects in marketing, green strategy. So it's everybody in the school that is in every course putting in, highlighting developing the future leaders. And that is, I think, very, very important for us. I think that education is one key vector of the transformation of tomorrow. And what I like very much in Dani's input is in a very typical sector, which is so close to
yes.
the ESG matters. But that is also true in any other business sector. It's not just going to be hitting and going into all sectors at the same pace. And in a school like ours, we like to see that China is really also committing. What Danny said, which is very important, is the metrics. Once you have the indicators, and indicators can vary from business sector to the other, the leaders, the managers, and all employees are very happy to do it. What I find extremely striking and great for China is that you have a new generation of managers for whom ESG is very meaningful.
So you mean they're educated in they
yes,
have the education
and the expectations are high.
I see.
There is a generational thing about ESG, which is very, very important.
I see. Sorry, Danny, is this same with your company? Like, do you have like Frank said, the generation of managers who really know more compared to the previous?
Yes, I think more and more the senior management, their awareness of the ESG, but I think they also need some more professional educations. They maybe have some concept, but they don't know. This is very important, metrics. It's very important.
I see. So what about the metrics in China, the trend of the metrics in China and Asia?
Well, I think like in every country, of course, it started a lot with people understanding the importance of the United Nations SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
And then what is very important with the metrics is that there is an appropriation, which means becoming familiar with the concepts. Sometimes companies are doing it and they don't know. And so it's very important to make a first audit of where you start so that you can progressively measure and make decisions about the next steps and the improvements for the future. I am a dean, and a lot of people in my school, in the business school, you need to be extremely business connected. And I'm also sitting on the board of directors of an audit company, for instance, like Mazars, which is a great audit and advisory company worldwide. And it's very important to also see in each company where you start from, what you're doing, and then top management and top leadership can explain, train, measure, assess, and reward employees for moving on with ESG. What I believe is very important is not so much to go fast immediately, as high and as fast as competitors, but really to make sure that you are walking the talk and not just talking about it without doing it.
Of course, this is really important when we speak about education of ESG. When I was a graduate student at Northwestern University in Chicago, I took a course called ESG. So every time my professor would bring a fund manager from like JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and explaining to us how large their fund is, how they make investments, and why they think this is important. So I think people do have like a misunderstanding or like a prejudice about ESG is that they think it's about doing good. Right, like they don't really see it will yield the tangible returns. So I wonder, how do you understand? How would you say that? Like, do you think ESG is only about doing good, or like it really yield returns in the real practice?
Well, I think that it's about doing good for the planet. What I think is very clear is that a lot of economies, a lot of companies have been expanding, growing over time, and haven't been always very careful about how they were using the natural resources of the planet.
Of course.
Now I think that we have definitely entered a new era, which is one of being aware of the scarcity of resources. People are thinking about recycling, wastage management, and all of this has to do again with metrics. We know, for instance, that you can recycle within limits because, for instance, in the paper industry, if you recycle paper more than 10 times, afterwards it's counterproductive to recycle. So I insist, all business sectors are different. When I meet alumni from CIBS, they all really display this sense of saving, thinking twice, implementing measures. So that is the second phase, using resources differently. There is a word for it in English, which is attenuation of resources, which is not growing less, because sometimes people speak of not growing. No, you can grow. Growth can happen using resources differently.
Yes, that's really comprehensive. So Danny, Frank mentioned about natural resources, and then solar panel or solar is definitely one of the key natural resources that can do good to carbon neutrality. So I wonder, what's your take on that? How will that help achieve China's goal of the 2030 carbon peak and then 2060 carbon neutrality?
Yeah, before that, I want to continue the comments that in the past, you do well, then you do good.
Yes.
You earn money, then do something good for others.
Yes.
But now, you do well by doing good. If you not do good, it will not impossible to let you.
That's a great
do
quote.
well, or even survive.
That's your great quote.
It's the key point.
So you do good by doing good, right? This is what you said.
You do well by doing good.
You do well by doing good. Yes, exactly. So you think they will really yield returns, right? Like when people make investment, they do care about the ESG aspects of a company or of like certain fields.
Yeah, I just give you an example that since 2019 that we joined the I100, that 3 years later, now our I percentage increased from their 18% in 2019 to 30% in 2020 to 41% in 2021, and by last year and reached 54%.
50.
Yeah, it's a great progress, because our capacity doubles almost every year. So it means that our power consumption doubles every year. So it's a great achievement without adding cost, without adding extra cost. But on the contrary, we charge the premium price to our customers. They allow us to do that because they acknowledge our efforts on I100. So our net margin increased from 13% in 2019 to 18% net margin. So I just want to tell everyone and let the majority of business to aware. Now we can do well and do good.
Yes.
I see.
And if you allow me, what is fascinating about what Danny is saying, that more and more customers are ready to pay more when they understand that the company is putting extra effort, putting more of research development, because this is going to help reach the objectives of sustainability. And I think that this is very new.
I see.
And, but it can only work if the company is good enough to demonstrate, show, explain, and convince its buyers and customers.
Like Danny's company,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like you got to display this first, and you have to have sort of like a long vision customers to really understand what you're doing and believe you can do that in future. Is it a difficult thing?
Not difficult.
Really? No?
No. Yeah. I think that
More and more people, they're highly conscious of the, we have only one nature, one earth,
Yes.
one climate. And if we destroy it, it's so costly, or even we cannot afford it to recover. So I don't need to pay much time to educate my customers. They're so aware yet.
I see. And so for your company, it's also like a long way to go, but you don't find it really like smooth, and you have the customer sort of to grow up with you and your concept. That's a really amazing thing. So talking about the question we asked before, like what's the role of the solar energy in really achieving the carbon goals?
You know, that's 70% of the carbon dioxide is generated by burning coal, and 80% burning coal is for electricity. So we must shift the way we generate and use electricity. It solves the half of the problems.
Of course.
Yeah, and the solar plus storage can supply the reliable power for the electrification of the industry process and heat pump. And as well as transportations like EV cars. And the solar-powered hydrogen can provide the fuels, the gas, and some chemicals for industry use. So this accounts for the 30% of the carbon. So that's why we call solar could be the main engine of the towards the net zero goals.
I see.
Yeah.
That's really important, and you have like so many solar panels that really helping and play a huge role in this process.
Yes.
Like you said, right? One of 8 is produced by your company.
1 of 8.
1 of 8. That's really huge. And I think there are also a notice that there are many. I think electricity are working in a really amazing way, so it will be fine. We're fixing that. And I think I also noticed like many companies have set their own goals, right? Like besides governments, they have like for China and for different countries, there are companies setting their own goals for carbon neutrality in China. So I wonder on their way or path to achieve the goal, what's your take on their, like, what are some challenges, what are opportunities they are facing in China for Chinese companies? Like on their way to achieve carbon neutrality, what do you think they're facing for now?
The challenges of the Chinese companies.
Yes,
there again, what Danny said about objectives. Of course, there will be always these international frameworks, but these will only be frames. The big players that will achieve all of this will be inside companies. And it will be employees at all levels that will help achieve this. What I see, which is very important in the transformation of organizations, for instance, is that in some companies, of course, the objectives are far ahead of the strict standards. And if they can do this, this is, of course, becoming best practices for others to follow. What I see also very much developing, which is important, is the nomination, I don't know if you have that, Benny, in your company, of somebody who is a Chief Impact Officer, a CHIMPO. It's a
Chief Impact Officer.
Yes, it's a title that you find in some organizations, precisely because they're going to be helping gathering all the information around the company, around those objectives, measuring the impact. Because what also we haven't been speaking about, which is very key, is that in most cases, sustainable aspects are not just with the company, but also with all of the supply chain and with subcontractors and providers. Yes. A lot of the objectives also get achieved through the providers in the chain.
So it's not only the company itself.
Right.
It's
so
like
what I'm saying, maybe it's a term that is very much used in European companies, for instance. What is very important is not just the inside of the company. It's the ecosystem with smaller companies, providers, subcontractors, and the company has to be very strict also with these other elements, other stakeholders, because the overall achievement will be depending also on those people.
That's a very interesting point. Do you have something to add? Do you see like it's also an ecosystem for your case?
Yes, in the past, the company should be responsible for the shareholders, but now it should be responsible for the stakeholders. Yeah.
But you also have, do you have to observe like different parts of your supply chain, whether they're green?
Yes, because you know the SBTI, the scope 3 is for to control or manage your supplier or your partners to do the same with you.
I see. And also you mentioned the Chief Impact Officer. Is this same case with you? I'm just very curious. How is it like in real life?
Sure. You know, the ESG officer, ESG report, now the impact report.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you have like a special department of team that's especially monitoring this part. So I wonder, is this a new phenomenon in recent years, or for a long time it's also established?
For me, it's just, of course, every stage, every part of history of companies has had a special name, CSR and sustainable development. And all. What is important is to see and to measure the progress being achieved. And I think that what I like very much with impact is that you're not only considering that leaders and managers are reaching their P&L, profit and loss objectives, but they're also reaching quantitative and qualitative objectives for their stakeholders, employees, and you can really put in place a lot of rewards, you can put incentives so that you achieve this. I think that leaders of the future will not just be recognized for how profitable, but how sustainable they have been leading their organization. And that is very, very different in nature. There is like a philosophical shift in a way.
That's very interesting. That echoes what Dan just said. Do well by doing good, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like the sustainable part has become more and more important. And also, Danny spoke about China's solar industry. I also wonder, what are some significant challenges and opportunities you're seeing in the industry? We think it's really leading industry globally. But for you, insider of the industry, what's your take?
I think the biggest challenge is political tension and political risk. This is the big challenges. And the big opportunity is now we enter the climate era. And the climate action is adopted by the majority of the countries. So this is the great opportunity. And for the company or for the business, we should know that now the solar is affordable and even cheaper. You know that the lowest power price we quoted is 1 cent per kilowatt hour.
Oh, really?
Yes. In Saudi Arabia.
So you pay 1 cent?
No, we invested in the tariff.
Okay.
We quoted
you imported 1 cent.
Yes. Even in China, the average solar power price now is 25 to 30 cents RMB. And the coal-fired is 44 cents RMB.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is the truth. And so now for the business sectors, so they should be aware now it's affordable, even cheaper. So
it's cheaper is better.
Yeah, you consider it ESG, not a cost barrier anymore. You consider it an opportunity.
That's really cool to hear. How have you achieved? How have you achieved like 25 to 30 yuan?
No mysterious. Two things. One is technical advancement. Efficiency, solar efficiency is the critical. And the second is manufacturing excellence.
Manufacturing
excellence. Yeah.
But for the technical part, do you have like invest a lot to like high tech?
Yeah, sure.
So if you improve the efficiency by
5 to 6% of our total revenue is on R&D. And for 20 times, we broke the world record of solar cell efficiency. So now we are so confident because our technology represents the most advanced and the highest level.
Of course.
Yeah.
And for the second point, you mentioned the manufacturing part. That's also like the high tech, or is it like a different angle?
Oh, high tech.
Also high
Yes,
tech.
yes. And totally smart. And no, in our workshop, you cannot see any workers there.
Oh wow! So
Yeah.
it's also like a whole supply chain, but with like very
Even the
digital.
trolleys, the grippers, and the carts, all the material, uploading and downloading, always robotic.
You should invite us to have a look at your
Yeah, sure. You're welcome.
where is it based?
We have 14 facility factories. One in Malaysia, one in Vietnam, one in Florida, and the rest in China.
Oh wow, that's so global. And also, I think it's a very interesting topic, and really I love to visit sometimes. And then you also spoke about climate. I think this is something very huge, but we do care. Like the conference just held in Paris is also on climate financing and relevant topics. And last year we see the Bank for International Settlements. They are like a bank. They all have like an annual conference on green financing. I think it indicates that it plays a big part, and climate crisis is important. And we also feel the heat recently. So I wonder, what's your take on this? How urgent is the climate crisis? How worried should we be about that?
I think that if you look back in history, there were early pioneers, people who have told and explained this in the past. Never in history, I'd like to bounce back, have management and research and technology been so close for making those big advancements happens. This is not going to be a problem just for a given country here and there. This is really a worldwide experience, and this is why regarding the financing yesterday morning in one of the great workshops we had Mrs. Mia Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, and she was with President Macron, who's very much committed to these things too.
She just attended Paris conference.
That's right, and it's absolutely fabulous to see also that the politicians are highly committed to make things happen, not just through declaration, but also through being there and measuring and working together. The cooperation on these matters is very key. The Prime Minister of Vietnam also said that it wouldn't be only the private sector on the one hand, the public sector and governments. This was something that had to be coordinated. And of course, it is no easy task, and it requires the mobilization. Not all countries will be able to finance it. This is why in the Paris talks recently, there have been new ways of approaching the problem, in helping some countries to maybe to get funds, and the IMF was also
of
very
course,
much present.
They're really invested.
So, all of this is an incredible human dynamic. At the end of the day, I repeat, it will always be in companies, and it will be individuals using electricity too much, not being careful about what they do. And we're so lucky to have companies like yours bringing solar. But that is true with solar, but we could be also speaking a lot about hydroelectricity.
Yes.
When you are not so lucky to have sun every day. For instance, in Norway, they have been excellent in storing, because hydroelectricity can also be stored.
Yeah.
And that is fabulous. So the solutions, there is not one area of solutions. It's going to be several solutions, but it needs coordination. And I think this is where management is necessary, because otherwise it will be scattered and a little bit hesitant. I think that the time scale of 2030 and then of 2060 is there. Maybe it will go faster.
Shorter.
But it is still a big objectives to reach.
It's very interesting and crystal clear. So Danny, like Frank said, we're very happy to have companies like yours so committed to new energy. What's your take on this? How worried should we be about a climate crisis?
I think the urgency is so pressing. So I wish that the business sectors, they're, instead of sitting there and waiting and looking around, they should take actions.
And like, what actions could combat this problem, as you may see?
I think I fully concur with Dani. I just want to add something that you said implicitly, Dani, that the role of education is key.
Yes.
Not just, of course, in leading business schools like ours, but also from a very early age.
Yes.
Because whatever can be done to educate citizens, to make them aware of those big challenges, that is a big preparation for the success of these great achievements.
Yeah, that's really important. And we'll probably be wrapping our roundtable discussion. It's very interesting and full of content. But last but not least, what's your expectations for this afternoon and tomorrow at the Summer Davos? Which one you go first?
Go first. You go first.
Then yeah.
Okay, you go first.
Okay, it's fine.
What I feel is very important, and this is one of the great benefits of of Davos, is that you have people who would not necessarily meet on a daily life basis, that can have the opportunity around a coffee in a workshop because they're sitting next to somebody, and there's a bit of chance in this. They're going to make things happen. They're going to be making decisions. And I'm very, very pleased to see that a lot of people, when they go out of the Davos Forum, when they think of it, they're going to be saying, well, there are two good ideas I want to implement, share, and that will be a huge transformation. So I'm very grateful to all the people that have met here for what they have brought, sometimes without knowing.
Yes, that's really important. I think it aims to provide such like in-person dialogue, because for past 3 years, we do most of our interviews online. We use Zoom or Tencent. We do the online meetings. So this is really a great chance to meet in person. So Dani, what about you? What's your expectation?
I call for collaboration across industry and across regions. Stop creating troubles. There's so many troubles, so many challenges now. So stop creating troubles, especially the cross-border troubles, because the climate change, it's really pressing. It's really pressing. If you know that the last summer is too hot.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the hottest year in the past 150 years. But if we don't take action now, it could be the coolest the year.
Yes, you're right.
In the coming years.
Of course. Yeah, that's very pressing issues. And thank you so much for joining our Roundtable Live discussion. I really love your output. These are very interesting calls, and it's a really great time to spend with you. So that will be the end of our Roundtable live streaming for today. And then from our guests, we want you to remember that the education of ESG is very important. We want you to know about how it works and how pressing are the climate crisis issues related. So we'll be bringing you the latest in Tianjin from here, and that's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you to you.
Thank you.